Good morning. This past week, a verse was highlighted to me, and it was in the book of Luke. I was reading in chapter 22, and the reason the verse was highlighted to me is because it hit home in a way that it hadn't literally ever before. Have you ever read the Bible over and over and over again and thought for sure you knew what it said, and as it turns out, you didn't? This verse is the verse where Jesus says to Peter, Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift you like wheat. And I've heard that verse a lot of times, and when I read it, I said, no, that can't be right. And that's why it was highlighted to me. And so I got out a bunch of other different translations, and apparently what the verse really says is, because if truth be told, I blame Simon Peter for a lot of stuff. My confession of the day. I blame him for being loud and boastful, and I blame him for being impulsive. And so what the verse really says is, Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift all of you as wheat. Well, that changes things a little bit, doesn't it? Satan has asked to sift all of you as wheat. I can't point the finger at Simon Peter anymore and say, oh, he's a mess. I kind of have to point the finger at me a little bit and say, oh, I'm a mess. And I am. And you know what? Jesus knows me. In Psalm 139, go there and read that. It will encourage your heart so much. He knows me. Before a word is on my lips, he knows it completely. He knows me. I mean, he created me. Of course he knows me. And he's not disappointed. He loves me. That's why Jesus gave his life. Because he loves me. He loves you. He knows you. He's not disappointed in you, and he's not condemning you. But I, so often, choose to condemn myself. Because I've pulled a Peter. I've gotten a little too bold and a little too outrageous and a little too outside the lines, and I'm not really looking at Jesus when I'm doing all that, because Jesus is not in my view right now. I don't see him. And so sometimes I act like Peter did. Jesus was taken by the guards, and so Peter's like, hey, I'm on my own. I don't have anyone here to protect me. I'm going to deny that that I have anything to do with this guy. And sometimes in my defense of myself, I really mess up my testimony, my words about Jesus. Have you ever done that? Yeah, I do it on a pretty regular basis. I think it's interesting what Jesus said to Peter after he said, Satan has asked to sift all of you. He says, but I have prayed for you, that your faith may not fail, and when you have turned back, strengthen your brothers. When you have turned back and you learned the lesson of the thing that you did and how you thought you were good but you weren't. When your heart gets broken because you messed up. You thought you were flying straight but you weren't. And when the rooster crows, and like Peter, you glance at Jesus and he's looking at you. Remember that he has prayed for you. The Bible says that he ever lives to intercede for me, for you. He has prayed for you. And so when you break down and weep bitterly, just like Peter did, remember that he prayed for you that you would go and strengthen your brothers and sisters. Hey, brothers and sisters, listen to this. Here's how I messed up. And here's how Jesus looked at me with mercy that's new every morning and compassion that never fails. And great, great faithfulness. And he prays for me. He intercedes for me. And so, can I strengthen you with these words? We all fall down. And we don't have it in ourselves to pick ourselves back up. But Jesus, went to the cross to pay the price, to draw us near to God. He has brought us from the kingdom of darkness into the kingdom of light, and he has prayed for us. And so encourage one another with these words. It's going to be a great day, and you know why? Not because I can, but because Jesus is. He is God. He is King. He is Lord of lords. He is the Alpha and the Omega. He is the first and the last. He is God made flesh. So that today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. But turn and look into his eyes, because he's looking at you, and he is not looking at you with condemnation. He is looking at you with compassion, with new mercy, and with great faithfulness. He loves me. He loves you. And he has prepared good works for you to do from before the foundations of the world were laid. Don't let a little slip up get in the way of the gaze of his eyes. Talk to him about it. Just like Peter did in John 21 on the beach with Jesus, when Jesus said, "Peter, do you love me?" Of course I love you, Jesus. As his heart was breaking. Feed my sheep. I have prayed for you, Peter. I have prayed for you, Simon. Go and strengthen your brothers. And so today, this Monday morning, as you go into this week and you're coming off a real royal screw up, his mercies are new this morning. Great is his faithfulness. He looks at you with eyes of fire, with eyes of compassion. He loves you, and he knows you love him. Maybe he's asking you to repeat it a couple of times so you will remember that you really do. And he will never leave you or forsake you. And it is going to be a great day.